Hello and welcome to Grand Prix Z coverage for MSEM. This is Caillou, and today we're going to be watching the round 1 match between Blues, who's on Red Black Dark Inscriptions, and Kevin Norton, who is on Temur Tempo. So I think generally Blues' deck is kind of like a grindy aggro deck, while Kevin's is, like as the name suggests, a tempo deck. And I think the consensus is that aggro wins versus tempo because it can drop threats under tempo, and then while tempo is struggling to answer it, it can't drop threats of its own. And eventually, and I think it's usually especially true for a deck like Blues, which has cards like Chigao, which give it recursive elements. Inscription, by definition, is card advantage. So I think ostensibly, Blues is favored here, like just looking at it from deck archetype wise. However, I think Blues seems to be relatively reliant, like just from looking over the deck lists, on Asharo's Handmaiden to really make any big plays, or Quillen Wanderer because of its hexproof nature. Without Quillen Wanderer, I think that Kevin will likely have difficulty, or sorry, Blues will likely have difficulty stopping Kevin from just playing threats and then having removal for whatever Blues can play, especially because Kevin is on the play here and is going to Imperial Siege Blues' shock fetch because Blues let it come into play tapped. That's definitely going to be a blow. I almost wonder if Kevin had a threat, Kevin should have played a threat and then waited until next turn to do this. But what it does do is it does put Blues off being able to play any creature this turn, unless that creature is Quillen Wanderer. And I think looking at it from that perspective, it was the right play. Especially because without a creature, lots of Blues' cards become significantly worse. They rely a lot on being able to inscribe them onto a creature. So in the meantime, Blues is going to crack a Wayfarer's Shrine, presumably grab. If Blues grabs a Forest, then nope. If Forest into Quillen Wanderer would have been the ideal, but just has to play this Mountain and then pass. Yeah. And I think without any creatures, Kevin can just feel free to maybe play whatever the 1-drop is. No, okay. Let me refresh my memory. Yeah, Champion of the Fae, and then hold up interaction in the form of Reconsider or Rogs. But since Kevin didn't do that, I'm thinking he has interaction plus Hexfang Aesthetic or Songjin here. Anyways, so Blues plays a Crumbling Precipice. Blues plays a Crumbling Precipice and then taps out for Tiernan Pyromancer. That is a creature. Kevin is saying, which I presume means that he has interaction. Tapping 3 is going to Hexfang Aesthetic this. Oh no, it's going to Mariner Skill. Interesting. So I'm assuming bounce it and then return Imperial Siege from his graveyard to his hand. That's painful. And then next turn, Kevin can play Imperial Siege and destroy the Crumbling Precipice, which puts Blues off black. And Blues has 7 cards in hand, but I think just keeping them off being able to play any of them is how Kevin wins here. And unfortunately, 4 mana is not really where Kevin wants to be. Because at 4 mana, Kevin can't really both have a flash threat and have interaction up. Also, Kevin has 3 pain lands, so Kevin needs another basic desperately. So Blues is going to play another Crumbling Precipice. So Blues is in the same situation of being trapped by pain lands. And then tap out for Asharo's Handmaiden. This is the card which Blues' entire deck centers around because it makes the inscribe costs on all of Blues' cards basically cost nothing. Usually the downside of inscribe is that you have to pay extra mana for it. Here that doesn't apply. So Kevin lets the Ashar's Handmaiden resolve, which is scary, but on end is going to play an Ascetic of Imbalance, and then is probably going to try and shoot the Ashar's Handmaiden with Ascetic's ETB ability. So discards Imperial Siege and Rogar's Frenzy, since one is an instant, one is a sorcery. The deal 2 damage to any target procs, and is probably going to kill Ashar's Handmaiden. Yep, makes sense. In response, Blues is going to, let's see, Dragon's Ire. That's really dope. So it essentially protects Ashar's Handmaiden by giving it +2/+2, pings Kevin for 1, and because Ashar's Handmaiden makes inscriptions free, Blues can now inscribe it onto Ashar's Handmaiden. I'm not sure what happened there. Oh, so what happened there is Ascetic of Imbalance is an if and not a when, which means that Blues can't respond to the second part as a separate trigger. So Blues should have, before Kevin drew cards, should have played the played the inscription on Asharo's Handmaiden. That's a weird thing to have to play around, and I feel sorry for Blues to have to deal with that. And Kevin is going to play another Imperial Siege, destroying a crumbling precipice. And yeah, Kevin's in a really good place here. Has 3 mana for interaction, has a threat on board. It's a 7-turn clock, but now that Kevin is in such a solid position, I think that it doesn't really matter how slow Kevin has to keep the clock as long as he keeps drawing into interaction. Of course, drawing interaction is the problem. Kevin is on 3 cards in hand, Blues is on 6. I think destroying the lands does make sense because it keeps Blues on only being able to deploy a single card per turn. And Kevin can answer a single card per turn pretty easily. So tapping 2, trying to get another Tiernan Pyromancer or Ashar's Handmaiden right here. No, instead he's going to play Chigao. Probably naming Ashar's Handmaiden. I think Kevin is thinking about whether to Hexfang Mystic this, and I think that would be the right call. Or reconsider? No, Cursory Glance. So it's just going to counter Chigao, not going to mess with that recursion. Versus a tempo-y deck, having these kind of grindy pieces is definitely scary. Fortunately for Kevin, Chigao is only a 2 of. So with 1 dealt with, it's unlikely that Blues will draw into the second to force Kevin to have an answer to it. So Kevin is just going to swing in for 2 and presumably pass. Oh no, on main 2, tapping 2, another Imperial Siege. That would be such a heartbreaker if it is. No. So Cane Dancer, Imperial Siege, destroy the crumbling precipice. This is insane. And Blues is just saying game 2. That's it. Like, can't come back from that. So Kevin wins game 1 in scary fashion. Just blowing up, getting all of your lands blown up is never a fun place to be. And wow, I guess Kevin only has 2 Imperial Sieges main. So that was like a really lucky draw from Kevin. So let's look at what sideboarding each player is going to do. So Starlit Rays I don't think will affect Blues that much. Well, actually it might. Actually, looking at Blues' deck here, I guess because Blues is splashing green for the 1 Quillen Wanderer, Blues' like deck list looks like really weird, even though it's a 2-color deck. It only has 4 basics. And as we've seen, the mana denial strategy does work. So Starlit Rays could come in as like I think a 1 or a 2 of, Amulet of Loyalties, I don't think there's anything in Blue's deck which has an activated ability. Yep, no. Titan Snare, not relevant. Spell Stutter, maybe, but I think Kevin cares more about answering Blues' creatures than non-creatures, unless that non-creature is named Chigao. Chaldron's Rage could do work here, so I could see like 1 or 2 Chaldron's Rage coming in. Union Rail, I don't know if this is a matchup where Kevin wants Union Rail, to be honest. I think Kevin wants to always be playing reactively rather than having to tap out for stuff, unless, the thing that Kevin's tapping out for is Imperial Siege. So my prediction is maybe Spell Stutter, but I doubt it. Likely 1 or 2 Starlit Rays and likely 1 or 2 Chaldron's Rage. On Blues' side, Seal the Tomb is really good, but I don't know if it's what Blues wants in this matchup. Chaldron's Rage, I think Blues wants Chaldron's Rage because this is a matchup where like getting behind on board is very scary, and Chaldron's Rage can easily rectify that. Nature's Claim, like what is Kevin? Kevin doesn't have anything that gets hit by Nature's Claim. Except the Starlit Rays, but if Kevin resolves Starlit Rays, then Blues has no way to cast Nature's Claim anyways. Then there's Quillen Wanderer, which I think will come in because of its hexproof nature and because it's so cheap, so it can go under all of Kevin's counter magic. Speaking of counter magic, Tenacious Guide blanks all counter magic, so I think Blues is going to side in all 3 of them. So my predictions for sideboarding are maybe Seal the Tomb, but I doubt it. 1 or 2 Chaldron's Rage, and then definitely all Quillen Wanderers, all Tenacious Guides. So both players have drawn their initial hands. Blues is keeping. Kevin is still thinking about it. Kevin's going to mulligan to 6. Which, being on the draw makes that far less of a problem. Of course, being on the draw for a tempo deck is a problem in many other ways, and keeping at 6. So Blues going turn 1, crack Wayfarer Shrine. Not going to mess with any of those non-basic lands. Knows how scary Kevin can be with destroying those. Just plays a mountain. And does Blues have a turn 1 play off this? I think all of Blues' Lava Spike cards are black, so yeah, just going to pass. Lava Spike in quotations there. Oh, and Kevin playing his Shock Fetch untapped. On 1, what is Kevin? And Kevin just going to end this. I think the only thing that Kevin has off of this is Opt. So Blues is tapping out for Ashar's Handmaiden, and this is what I mean by getting under what Kevin's doing. Because Kevin has no counter magic that can hit Ashar's Handmaiden here. Okay, so what is happening right now is that we had a long interlude because Kevin accidentally brought the wrong sideboard. So Kevin sided in Snowfield Mothers, which were, not in his submitted sideboard. Fortunately, this was caught before any of the cards were drawn. So the fix is Kevin reveals his hand, he reveals his deck. The Snowfield Mothers are sided out, and Blues gets to choose which of the cards Kevin sided out gets to be put back into Kevin's deck. And then after all of these fixers, after all of these fixers are done, if there's a game 3, Kevin will have to load the correct deck list. So it's unfortunate because I don't think Kevin did this maliciously, obviously. It was just kind of an accident. But this gives Blues such an advantage because it lets Blues see what Kevin sided in, gives Kevin perfect hand information, gives Blues the opportunity to see what Kevin sided in, gives Blues complete access to Kevin's hand information. And having that information lets Blues effectively play around what Kevin has. And so Blues is going to force Kevin to side in 2 Hexfang Ascetics in exchange for the Snowfield Mothers. Now, Kevin's hand is looking very shaky here. The cursory glance being dead, it means that Kevin can't counter this Asharo's Handmaiden. I don't know. Looking at that hand, I'm not sure why Kevin played the Mysterious Cataract untapped. Maybe he was trying to pretend that he sided in Spell Stutter. But like I can't think of anything else he would be trying to spook Blues with. Yeah, it doesn't have any other interaction on 1. No other flash threats on 1. So there was literally no reason to do that. Does Blues have any land destruction? No, looking at Blues' deck, Blues does not have any land destruction. So I can't see any reason for Kevin to just take 2 like that. Especially in this aggressive matchup. Anyways, we're continuing with those fixes. Kevin cracking his shock fetch for Forest. But yeah, the cursory glance is kind of useless now that Asharo's Handmaiden is already resolved. Kevin basically needs to stop this Asharo's Handmaiden from doing anything until he can get to 4 mana and then play out his his Ascetic of Imbalance. The problem with that is that since last game, Blues played improperly around Kevin's Ascetic. Blues now knows that if he has any pump spells, to use them in response to the Ascetic. So Blues will probably hold up pump spells given that he knows that Kevin has the Ascetic, and they'll protect Asharo Handmaiden. And in the meantime, Kevin can like cursory glance whatever inscription Blues plays here, and then Cane Dancer to do it again. But Blues is still going to be able to get in 2 damage here. Like, that's not nothing. Like, when you're playing against a tempo deck and you have a threat and they don't, you're usually perfectly fine with them countering your stuff. And ooh, Dragon's Ire. This is the pump spell we were talking about. So Kevin is going to crack his shock fetch and then cursory glance the Dragon's Ire, but Blues still has 4 cards in hand and 2 more mana. So Blues could potentially play like a Searing Script or another Dragon's Ire. The Nomad's Township means that can't have both, but could have Forbidden Brew plus Dragon's Ire, which would be terrifying. In favor of the Emperor or Treacherous Ways also are like reasonable hits here. Let's see what it is though. So tapping 2, taking 2 from his own pain lands. Oh, playing Chigao. Interesting. And naming Asharo's Handmaiden. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because now Kevin having the Ascetic of Imbalance doesn't really mean much because even if Asharo's dies, Blues can recast it. I think the problem would be is I think Blues should have reversed the sequence of this. Like I think Blues is more okay with Chigao getting countered and then having an Asharo's Handmaiden which deals 5 damage this turn, 5 damage next turn, and then just kind of ends up killing Kevin. But that's another Dragon's Ire, so okay. We know Kevin has Cane Dancer. So yeah, Kevin is going to Cane Dancer, return the Cursory Glance, counter the Dragon's Ire. And Asharo's Handmaiden being able to be chumped is definitely a downside of Blues' deck. Going to be tapping 2 more for... Is this the Sacrifice? Yeah, it is the Sacrifice Inscription 1. Treacherous Ways. So now Kevin is forced to sacrifice the Cane Dancer. Blues inscribes Treacherous Ways to Asharo's Handmaiden. And what this means is Kevin can no longer... if Kevin only plays 1 creature per turn, Kevin can no longer keep a creature on the board. Definitely scary. So yeah, even though Blues is really hammering himself with these pain lands, his clock on Kevin is faster than the Painland, so he's willing to just like get the value out of being able to play cards under Kevin in exchange for life. Because as long as Kevin doesn't have a threat on board, I don't think Blues minds too much about pinging his own life total. Meanwhile, Kevin has 2 Painlands of his own, but has the basics to mitigate them, and it's just going to go to end. So could have other interaction, or could have the Aesthetic of Imbalance, which we know that Kevin has in hand. So Blues knows it too, so is probably going to try and play around it somehow. Like I think keeping the pump spells rather than letting them be countered was super important, because resolving a pump spell onto Ashar's Handmaiden is crucial to be able to allow Ashar's Handmaiden to profitably attack through the Ascetic. Instead, Blues is going to tap out for a Tiernan Pyromancer, and then going to attack with the Ashar's Handmaiden, but then Kevin can let the Treacherous Ways resolve, right? And then after the Treacherous Ways resolves, can play the Aesthetic of Imbalance and then try to shoot Ashar's Handmaiden. Copying Treacherous Ways does help because it pings Kevin for 1. Is it cast the copy? Yeah, it's cast the copy. So before blocks, yeah, Kevin's going to flash in Aesthetic of Imbalance. So I think Kevin's plan is probably, I said before it's probably shoot Ashar's Handmaiden, but I think actually it's shoot Tiernan Pyromancer and then block Ashar's Handmaiden because Aesthetic of Imbalance lives through it. Kevin has to discard 2 cards first. So Kevin discards Sangjin and Island. So creature, land, those are 2 different types. So unless Blues has an instant speed, nope, Blues does not have an instant speed Lava Spike there. So Tiernan Pyromancer dies, and then Kevin blocks Ashar's Handmaiden. That was really good. Of course, next turn Blues can replay Ashar's Handmaiden with Chigao, but without a way to get over this Aesthetic of Imbalance, it'll definitely be an uphill battle for Blues. Main 2 for Quillen Wanderer? Huh, yeah, I guess Blues just playing out Quillen Wanderer. And having all of these creatures but none that can get over Aesthetic of Imbalance is really scary. Which is also another reason that having the Dragon's Ire be played second would probably have been the right play, because it allows Ashar's Handmaiden to not be profitably blocked by Aesthetic. Like in the sense of Kevin would have had to both shock Ashar's Handmaiden and block with Aesthetic of Imbalance, and in that case they would trade, rather than Kevin being able to 2-for-1 Blues there. And Blues attacked knowing that Kevin had that 2-for-1 in hand. So I'm not sure what that was about. Anyways, Kevin swings for 2. Blues declines to block with the Quillen Wanderer. Main 2, Kevin's thinking about something. So tapping 2 to play... what could this be? Oh, Imperial Siege. Destroying Crumbling Precipice. I don't know if I agree with destroying Crumbling Precipice. But I guess putting Blues off of double red prevents him from being able to cast Tiernan Pyromancer. And Kevin doesn't have anything, or Blues doesn't have anything on green that Kevin cares about him casting. So even though Nomads would cut him off a color, I think Kevin probably cares more about putting Blues off double red. Also, what this means is, Blues playing Seal the Tomb on Imperial Siege. In response, Kevin can flash it back with Cane Dancer if Kevin has Cane Dancer. So I think this was a bad play by Blues. No? has Shaldron's Rage and Shifting Glade in hand. So Kevin did side in the Shaldron's Rage. But yeah, so Seal the Tomb is just gonna eat that Imperial Siege. I think Kevin is pretty okay with that, like having only 2 copies of it. I think Blues was super spooked by game 1 and didn't want to get mana denied out. Anyway, so I guess the thought between tapping out is whether Kevin wanted to have the ability to, I don't remember what the mechanic is, but essentially like kicker the Shaldron's Rage to be able to wipe Blues' board. But Blues ends up just passing. Kevin's going to attack into the Ascetic. Blues this time is going to chump with Quill and Wanderer. Blues being down, both players are down to 2 cards in hand, but Ascetic of Imbalance is way scarier. Blues could have a pump spell. Blues did not have a pump spell, just chumps. This is a pretty good spot for Kevin. Ooh, but Blues does have the Searing Script, so it's probably just going to make the land hit Ascetic of Imbalance. And now both players are down to no threats. But what Blues can do on his turn is, because he has Chigao on Ashar's Handmaiden, can recast her. It'll be up to Kevin to have some answer for it. Ooh, and one of Blues' cards in hand is another land. Not really what you want to be on when you're like top decking, but and these constant pain land pings definitely hurt Blues. But yep, going to be recasting Ashar's Handmaiden with the Chigao. Kevin lets it resolve. Any creatures on end, or is Kevin just going to pass? Nope, Kevin's just going to pass. I think Kevin should try to kill, like, what, no. I was about to say, like, what, inscriptions does Blues have for just black? Because now Kevin can't Shaldron's Rage now. Okay, Blues just moves to end. I guess Blues just doesn't have any inscriptions. It's just hoping to get there on this 2/2. And Kevin is on a 5-turn clock. Kevin moving to main 1. Does that mean Kevin has something actually good here? No, just Kevin has a wave. Kevin is getting so flooded out here. Like, how many lands is Kevin on? 21, yeah. And not cracking the Wayfarer Shrine on Kevin's end makes a lot of sense, because that he wants to preserve as much life as he can. Blues, however, is definitely going to crack his Wayfarer Shrine, because that turns off the pain lands. So no more getting pinged by those. Blues will gladly take 1 damage in exchange for preventing further 2 damage each turn. Yep, Blues himself says it. Now I can stop killing myself for mana. Blues attacks the Ashar's Handmaiden. At some point, Kevin is going to have to try and kill Ashar's Handmaiden with the Shaldron's Rage, and I think it's better sooner than later. Yeah, Kevin is going to kicker the Shaldron's Rage, deals 3 damage. Ashar's Handmaiden does die. I think doing this right now was a mistake, because now main 2 Blues can just recast it. Unless Kevin has like another counterspell or something, but yeah, Blues just recast Asharos. Like, I think Kevin probably should have just cracked the Shaldron's Rage back when Blues was tapped out, except for the Nomad's Township. And I think, like, I know Kevin values like not taking 2, but oh, and Blues has another Asharo's Handmaiden. Oh no. I don't think Kevin has a way to deal with this. Like, Kevin's only out here is kill Blues faster, and Blues has a 2, potentially 3-turn clock. Well, okay, Kevin cracked the Wayfarer Shrine. That makes it definitively a 2-turn clock with these Asharo's Handmaidens. And Kevin just goes. This is not looking good for him. Blues tapping one. Gonna Searing Script. I think this kills. Does this kill Kevin this turn? Yeah, this kills Kevin this turn if Kevin doesn't have a response. Because Blues inscribes it onto the Handmaiden, attacks with the Handmaiden, copies the Searing Script, and then the Handmaidens deal 2 damage each themselves. Kevin's going to tap 2, reconsider. Okay, he's going to cycle it, probably to hope to draw into an answer, because reconsider here doesn't actually counter it since Blues has 3 mana up. And then Kevin tapping 2, going to Cane Dancer. What is Kevin getting back with this? Shaldron's Rage. Can Kevin Shaldron's Rage with Kicker? Okay. So I guess Kevin can, but then Blues can just recast Ashar's Handmaiden from his grave. This endless recursive value of Chigao is just coming in super handy here. Because Kevin's entire deck is based on like having answers to your, like 1-for-1ing your opponent and then just having the beatdown. But now Kevin has no win cons and can no longer profitably 1-for-1. And Kevin just draw going again. This is giving Blues so many opportunities to draw into just a thing that kills. Okay, gonna attack with Ashar's Handmaiden. So Kevin just taking the damage, but I guess Blues in response. Oh no, is this main 2? Main 2 casting the other Ashar's Handmaiden. That puts Kevin dead next turn. In response, Kevin's gonna tap 3, Hexfang Ascetic. Yeah, Hexfang Ascetic bouncing Ashar's Handmaiden. Gives Kevin a blocker for this Ashar's Handmaiden. It's still not a good place to be. It's not really stabilization of any sort, but it's something. Blues has 2 more mana. Oh yeah, it can because has enough mana to recast the same Ashar's Handmaiden. Oh, that's painful. So Blues can really definitely kill Kevin next turn. Kevin's out was maybe like attack with Hexfang Ascetic and then have double Rogs, but that just doesn't work here. Rogs in general would be super great because it would provide blockers for each of these Ashar's Handmaidens, or like blockers for one and then the ability to kill another. But Kevin, I guess, is just not drawing into that type of gas. Blues tapping 2, Favor of the Emperor. Gonna inscribe. Actually, inscribing this. Ooh, this feels dangerous. Interesting. So Blues is gonna go down to 5 life. Does get to. It's a Night's Whisper, so he gets to draw 2 more cards. Yeah, it's an interesting play because if Kevin has a Rogar's Frenzy in hand, then if Blues copies it with Ashar's Handmaiden, in response, Kevin can Rogar's Frenzy Blues' face. That would be an amazing play. Blues is going to tap another 2 for a Tiernan Pyromancer. Ooh, it's definitely scary. But Blues is tapped out here. What Kevin can do is block the Ashar's Handmaiden, which has the Favor of the Emperor inscribed on it. And then... oh, no, Blues is only going to be attacking with this Ashar's Handmaiden? Not even going to be cast... Okay. Interesting. And I don't think Kevin has any reason not to take the 2 here. Well, okay, Kevin is going to block. Because Blues is tapped out, it's not like Blues can play a land, main 2, and then Searing Script Kevin. Because I think that would be the one reason for Blues to keep this untapped, to basically have that line. So Kevin's outs are 2 burn spells, but Kevin just goes to end. Kevin is dead to a lot from Tiernan Pyro. So that might be what Kevin was afraid of, Tiernan Pyromancer triggers. Duress does trigger 1. And yep. Oh no, Kevin has all lands. Yeah, this game is over. Kevin got so flooded, drew 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's more than half of the lands in Kevin's deck. That was really unfortunate. So we're going to a game 3. This time Kevin will have to fix his sideboarding error. But also Kevin will be on the play, which, in the tempo versus aggro matchup is definitely huge. So, we're at the start of game 3. Kevin has mulled to 6, Blues has mulled to 5. I think mull to 5 is definitely scary, but if Blues has the right hand, can definitely just blitz out Kevin. Meanwhile, Kevin is going to play Crystal Cavern and then pass. Does mean that Kevin has... Does Kevin have Opt in his deck? I don't believe that Kevin has any... I don't think Kevin has anything he can do turn 1 with this, other than Spell Stutter. But I don't think that Blues is going to have anything to Spell Stutter turn 1 either. Blues is cracking the Shock Fetch, so could be going turn 1... Oh, turn 1 Duress? Yep, and we see the turn 1 Duress. So Kevin has Unraveling, Starlit Rays, Aesthetic Imbalance, Rogar's Frenzy, another Unraveling. Probably grabbing the Starlit Rays is the best call here. Because Unraveling powers up another Unraveling. Rogar's does stuff from the graveyard. Starlit Rays is the only card which isn't actively good in Kevin's grave. And yeah, hand attack is really strong, but not when all of your cards are active from the grave. Oh, but Kevin doesn't have a second land. Oh no. Oh no, that's really bad. That's really, really bad. Oh no. Was this one of those hands where it's like, man, this gets insane if I keep drawing lands? This is like the opposite of game 2 where Kevin got flooded. Meanwhile, Blues playing a basic and then Asharo's Handmaiden. This is exactly the nut that Blues needs. And no, Kevin misses another land drop. Blues is going to attack with the Asharo's Handmaiden, and I guess in response can inscribe stuff onto it. No, but Blues doesn't have anything to inscribe onto it and doesn't play anything from hand? That's even more confusing. But no, Kevin misses another land drop. This is not what you want to see out of a game. Yeah, and Blues has a Searing Script, deals 2 damage to Kevin's face, and then swings out with Asharo's Handmaiden, dealing another 2. And then Asharo's Handmaiden herself deals 2 damage. So that's 6 damage this turn. And it puts Kevin down to a 3-turn clock. This has the potential to become such a non-game if Kevin doesn't draw into another land. And even if Kevin does draw into another land, having only this pain land is super not good. Yeah, 2 pain lands. Kevin finally drew a land, but it's not enough. And I feel like while Blues had their only red tapped out, Kevin should have just Rogar's Frenzied the Asharo's Handmaiden. Because now Blues could untap, have the pump spell for Asharo's Handmaiden, and Kevin won't be able to kill it. So yeah, Rogar's Frenzy, and in response he's going to cast the pump spell, which is why... Oh no, Kevin! This is why you should have just done it on his turn. And since this was at start of attacks, Blues gets to do this again. So Asharo's Handmaiden becomes a 4/4. Searing Script goes up to... Oh god, that's 6. That's another 6 damage. Kevin dies next turn. Oh Jesus, and that's it. Blues takes it 2-1 over Kevin. The good games to both players, but Man, I can't help but feel sorry for Kevin, just getting incredibly mana flooded game 2 and then getting mana screwed game 3. It's not how you want to see someone go out. That's not a fun game. Well, anyways, until next time, this is Caillou, signing out.